Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Naomi Tuma, and I'm a member of the clergy here at St Peter Mancroft. As is usual on a Wednesday afternoon, I will be having a short reflection on some current events. This is live streamed to our YouTube channel, but also there's a few people here in the church today, and you're welcome to listen or just to continue your visit. If you have been paying attention over the last few weeks, we've been having a Lent course here at St Peter Mancroft, and the theme of the Lent course has been hidden. In the summer, we're really looking forward to a new art exhibition here in the church, which is entitled Hidden. And over the last few weeks, we have been looking at hidden stories in the Bible, stories of some of the people who are not front and centre in the Bible stories, but are hidden in the margins. And this week is Holy Week as we look towards Easter. It's the final week of Lent, and Lent often we concentrate, and particularly in Holy Week, we concentrate on looking at the steps Jesus took as he went towards his cross and his crucifixion at Easter. And sometimes I find that during Lent, the hope of Easter is one of the things that gets hidden. We are focused on the death, we are focused on the problems, we are focused on our own sin and our own separation from God. And sometimes the hope of Easter is hidden during Lent. It's interesting thinking about Easter. When my colleague Susie and I were discussing what to put on the Easter poster, which tells you all about the services we're running, we have two crosses, one representing the death of Jesus and one representing the resurrection. And we had a conversation about how should that poster look? Should the cross, which represents the death of Jesus, be bigger than the cross that represents the resurrection? Or should it be the other way around? Should the yellow bright cross on the one side for the resurrection of Jesus be bigger than the dark-coloured cross on the other side of the poster? Now, if you go and have a look at the banner which is outside on our railings, you'll see that in the end, the two crosses are both the same size. We decided that the death of Jesus is equally important to the resurrection of Jesus. The Easter story, the Easter that we believe in, encompasses both the death and the resurrection of Jesus. And both of these aspects of Easter are equally important. So we focus on the death of Jesus during Holy Week, his willingness to enter into human life to the extent of suffering and dying alongside us. But it's not so that Jesus can discover what it means to be human. No, it's more that Jesus can show us the way to live fully human, to live as if we were made, or not as if, but to live as people made in the image of God. So Jesus shows us how to live. And we look towards the resurrection, where God overcomes all of the darkness and death and makes all things new. This is something we desperately need. This Lent may be no more or less than other Lents, but it does feel like there is a lot of darkness in the world at the moment. There's so much evidence of how we as human beings have fallen from our best selves, have allowed ourselves to be overtaken by selfishness, fear, and violence. You may have seen that the bishops issued a statement in the House of Lords this week condemning the bombing of a hospital in Gaza and asking our government to stand against the violence that is taking place in Gaza. It seems horrific that we should have to say that the bombing of a hospital is unacceptable. It seems unbelievable that this has to be noted, that people have to say this is a problem. And that is only one of several things going on in the world today which make it feel like a very unstable and unhappy place. There are many more examples of our fallenness and our preference for death rather than life. But it's not the whole story. There are also many hidden stories that don't get front and centre in the news. Stories of goodness and love. Stories of resurrection and hope. Stories that show that we have the capacity to love one another. And I do think that our horror at some of the things going on in the world is kind of a mark of hope. Because if we didn't stand against them, if we didn't have any hope, then we wouldn't think that we should protest. We wouldn't think that it would have any effect. So even our resistance to the things of death and destruction in the world is a sign of hope that another way of living is possible, a sign of hope that there is a way to follow God rather than to follow violence. In Holy Week, today marks the day that Jesus was betrayed by those closest to him, which is a reflection of how the world turns away from him. But part of the resurrection story is that Jesus welcomes back even those who betrayed him. He welcomes back those who turn their back on him. He welcomes those who run away from him. And as he welcomes them back, he recommissions them to serve in his kingdom, to serve in his army of love rather than an army of violence. Part of the resurrection story is the story of Jesus welcoming back those who have betrayed him. So this Lent, this Holy Week, as we see around us so much fear and despair, let us have enough hope to raise our voice in condemnation of violence, of condemnation of the darkness. Because we know that an alternative is possible. We know that in Jesus' resurrection he overcomes all darkness and violence. And let's look for the hidden stories of hope and resurrection this Easter. Amen.